Hello and welcome to the Grumpy Bagel Podcast. I'm your host Megan. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as the Grumpy Bagel. And welcome to the first episode of 2019. This is a nerdy and knitting podcast coming to you from Central California. I think I actually remembered to say all the things this time. And new year and, well, not new me. I'm same old me. I'm trying to get a new episode out in a somewhat regular fashion, so yay me for doing something once. So I do not have my co-host from last time up here. I have Candles because we had a really big storm yesterday and throughout the evening, and the power went out a couple of times. So Candles in strategic locations, and you realize how spoiled you are when the power goes out. No lights, obviously, no Wi-Fi, and I was able to actually knit a little bit by candlelight last night. I don't think anything horrible happened, and I had a vanilla sock going and a fairly easy cowl pattern to go off of, so that kept me occupied for a while all of us are just waiting for the power to come back. At least the Wi-Fi. Let the Wi-Fi come back on. That's what my dad kept asking about. He kept asking, the Wi-Fi's out too, right? Yeah. Yes, love, the Wi-Fi is out too. But it was only out for maybe a couple of hours altogether. So, and no damage to the house and property as far as I can see. We've got a bit of a break right now. I had a little bit of sunshine this morning, so although it's supposed to pick up again throughout the week. And now I'm sounding like Amy from Stranded. This is not a weather podcast. This is a knitting podcast. So let me go ahead and get into my finished objects for you. First, I have some vanilla socks. I don't have the sock blockers with me, so I'll hold up one sock here. This is in Nerd Girl Yarns Bounce and Stomp in the, what is it? Dimensional Transcendentalism is Preposterous colorway. Because, how could I forget that? So, got a finished pair. This is a gift for a friend of mine, for Teresa. Hi, Teresa. And these are in Women's 8. I used my usual 56 stitch count on the size 1 DPNs, US 1s. I have a cowl. And I said I was going to look up how to pronounce this word. It's a Latin word. So AQ. And I'll put it down here, obviously, of how it's spelled. This is a pattern by Hilary Smith Callis. So it's one of her wonderful asymmetrical cowls that, looks like you're wearing a shawl, but so it's meant to be used in a gradient set of colors, but I've seen a lot of people use it in this isn't a solid, but in just one color and just, knit it as is, and it still looks really pretty. I think it's a nice way to show off those lovely colors. So this is sorry, it's so soft and scrummy. It is a Western Sky Knits Magnolia sock, which is one of their MCN bases, so the fingering version, and it's just so scrummy and so lovely. I got this at Stitches West, and it was a skein, if you remember that story, of that I was looking at a lot of different skeins in there. It was like the one booth where I wanted absolutely everything. And I had made my selections, and then I couldn't find this skein again. And I started to actually panic over it because I thought, I need that one because it's, you see these little blue specks in there? That's what sold it for me. And I couldn't find it, and I was frantically, going through the sale bins and looking at, all the racks that they had up, and I finally found it. So this colorway is Mystic. But it makes me think of when I saw Gail and Charlene there. Good memories. So this is also my entry for the Self-Indulgent Knit-Along of 2019 that the Yarning Axe host. So the idea of it is just to, in the first few months of, I think it ends at spring, starts at winter, ends at spring, of just making something self-indulgent for yourself, no matter what that means. And I needed some self-indulgency, so finish that one there. And I used a size 6 needle. on this one. I would have gotten gauge on a 7, but it just felt too loose and too gapey. But I think this is a great size on it as well. So I finished the willow cowl that I was knitting for my grandma. Let's see if I can get it looking scrunched up like it's supposed to there. Sort of. So this is the Willow Cowl by Amelia Lyon. And I used size 2.5 needles on Madeline Tosh Merino Light in the Blue Nile colorway. So now I'll be able to get this sent off to her. I made yet another Stash Buster shawl by Heather Haynes. So I think I'm going to be making a lot of those. I used a precious skein of Miss Babs Hot Shot in the Deep Sea Jellyfish colorway, which is a color that I've wanted to use for so long. And this is qualified as a Babette on her website, so it means that it's a variegated colorway that's repeatable, but just because of the nature of hand dyeing, it'll always be just a little bit different. So some dye lots I would see weren't to my taste. It was too light or too dark, but I really wanted to be able to get that gray in there as well. I also got this skein at Stitches West, so got that going. Matches my shirt quite nicely. I use size 5 needles on these, as I seem to be doing for almost all of my Stash Busters. And I made an Across the Pond shawl by Mina Phillip, who's also known as the Knitting Expat. I'd had this in my mind for a long time, but couldn't just, get the wherewithal together to get the color that I wanted for the contrasting here. This is shawl, I'm trying to make sure you can see the texture pattern here. It's almost like quilted stitch in the way that you gather your floats up with another stitch. They kind of almost look like butterflies when you do it like that. This is, the main color is, sorry, looking at my notes again. It's a somewhat local hand dye, indie dyer. Where is it? I put everything out of order from what I'm actually showing you, so that works, Megan, of course. There it is. It's second on the list. I'm so smart. This is Bella Hand Dyed Yarns in the Mendocino base, which is a 100% merino fingering. This is a one-of-a-kind color. Almost all of her colors are one-of-a-kinds from what I can see. And it's just this lovely speckled in blues and purples for my main color, and then for my contrasting color for the lace border here, I used some Malabrigo sock in the natural colorway. That was the best fit that I could find for this base. They are different. The Bella is a 4-ply and Malabrigo sock is the 3-ply, so there's just a little bit of difference there, but close enough for me. I used number 6 needles on these. This is the small size, and I wasn't planning to knit the large size, but I thought, and the more I was doing it, I thought that would be really, really big. And, I could have done it, but I actually ripped back and just went with the small size, and I'm very happy with it. I think this is plenty big. Excellent size. I have quite a lot of hats in finished objects, which is kind of unusual for me. I'm usually all about the socks and all about the shawls, but I think winter coming around just makes you want to, be warm and cozy and cuddly, and then I've been very aware of my stash lately, and hats are a good way to stash bust. So, I went with that. Let's see, first one, which one should I show? Let me go ahead and get the sock head out of the way, because of course there's another sock head in here. Here is sock head hat by Kelly McClure, of course. This is in a new base from Nerd Girl Yarns, which is a Corradale blend. This is called Grace, and the colorway Jurassic. So more Jurassic Park yarn, yay! This one's for my mom. She picked out this color. This is a limited edition colorway. So just all the colors of the, the classic Jurassic Park logo. Looks pretty awesome. Here, this is a Sweet Shop hat by Stephanie Lotvin. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. So it's meant for a DK weight. It's designed for that, but I had a gradient set from Greenwood Fiberworks in the Stardust base. This is a gradient version of their Victoria colorway, and I thought that would work great for it's shown on the Ravelry page for 5 stripes, and I thought, I have 5 colors, I'll go ahead and do that. So I just held them double. All the strands you can go ahead and see there, the double strands there. And so obviously it would start here with the light pink and then go up, and then I just used the darkest color down on the brim to try to make more contrast on it. I used number 3 needles for this, for fingering weight held double. My hands hurt after this, but I'm pleased with the results. And this is the first time I've ever been tempted to get a pom-pom on a hat. Like one of the faux fur pom-poms. So maybe I'll be adding that later. I'm not sure. I'll have to see how I feel about it. This is a hat that I have been using quite a lot lately. I finished the Cannonball hat by Erin Hartman on Black Hat Fibers Essential DK 40 wax. And it's just long enough to be able to cuff it up. And that's been working great for me at work lately. So finish that. I used number 4 and number 6 needles. So number 4 is for the cuffs and 6 for the body. I made it ended up being from my mom just because it didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to, but she likes it and she's very knit-worthy, so I'll basically let her have whatever she wants. An Artist of Pentacles hat by, sorry, keep looking down, should look up, by Just Knowles. So it's this slip stitch pattern where you use a reverse stockinette in here with your contrasting color and your main color to get this really neat effect. So the main color is some leftover Knit Picks Swish worsted in, I think it's Marble Heather, not Cobblestone. Yeah, Marble Heather for the lighter brown. And then for my contrasting color, use some Nerd Girl Yarns Clever, which is also a worsted weight in I'm Not in the Mood for Vikings, which was, if you'll recall, last month's Who's Your Doctor Club colorway. And I went ahead and ordered some extras of that. So, see how it comes together at the top there. It's really neat. I really want to try this pattern with some different colors, but just, something different. And the last hat is something that has been requested for a long time. The hat I made for my dad. And I've made socks for him, and he does like them, but hats seem to be the thing that he's most interested in. Because he is completely bald, he shaves his head, and then in the winter months he needs something to keep his head and ears warm while he sleeps. And I've made a couple of turn square hats for him by Jared Flood, and he's used those absolutely to death. I mean, I've used superwash yarn and things, but they basically felted on themselves. He's used them that much. And then a couple months ago he went on a business trip and came back. And my mom was the one who told me because he was afraid to tell me because he takes his hats with him when he goes abroad. And he had forgotten his hat at the hotel. And he was afraid to tell me that he'd done that. And I had to tell him, one, those hats were well on their way out. He needs new ones. And two, this is the thing that knitters talk about, that I'd rather that he lost it because he took it with him everywhere and that he used it every day instead of, putting it in a drawer and forgetting about it. I'm actually happy that happened because that means that he actually likes them and is using them. So once I was able to, calm him about that, I said, yes, I'm going to knit you some more hats. So, and he likes the beanie style. I used a pattern for the Brunswick beanie. Let's see who designed it. By Sue Grandfield. And I used, so it's a rib pattern. I'll show you the crown decreases here. Pretty neat. Without it blowing out too much there. And I used some Hedgehog Fibers DK in the typewriter colorway. And I have a hat in typewriter. It's in the sock base. I made a sock head out of it. And when I bought it, he actually noticed the color and said, that's really neat. So I thought, go ahead and get him that one. And, it doesn't have to worry about it getting dirty. He mainly uses them when he sleeps. So I made it 10 inches before I started the crown decreases because he likes to be able to cuff the hat so that he can pull it down around his ears and around the back of his neck when it's really cold. So that's what it looks like. And he's noticed that I haven't given it to him yet because I wanted to save it for the podcast. So he'll be very happy now that he can wear it. And I used... Oh, I made mods on that. Where were they? I used number 4 needles. My gauge was off on it. That's what it was. So I used the medium stitch count to get a size large on it. And it fits in fine. We tested it many, many times. So, Brunswick. That takes us into works in progress. I am making a Star Shower cowl by Hillary Smith Callis. Trying to get everything untangled here, sorry. So I am using Nerd Girl Yarns Shimma in a familiar colorway. This is also I'm Not in the Mood for Vikings. This is her fingering silver stellina base. You can just see the sparkles in there. So getting ready to be done with that one. Using number 6 needles. I usually use 7s, but then I usually make them for my mom, and she likes them really loose, and I like them tighter, so it's just an adjustment I make on that one. These are the vanilla socks I was working on last night, so by candlelight, so I think they're okay. I don't see any big mistakes in them, so it must mean I was doing well. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you would see my post that I posted on the 1st, because this is Invictus Yarns Inconquerable Soul on the colorway 13, which I cast on New Year's Day for the Doctor Who special. Let me show you it in the cake. There we go. So, socks for Doctor 13. I actually only have 3 works in progress to show you. I had relatively clean needles to end the new year. To end the year going into the new year, which is kind of nice to be able to just have a clean slate there. The last work in progress that I have is the Clinker Bell Cowl by Casapinka. Here. Also my stitch marker from A Needle Runs Through It, silhouette of Mr. Darcy. This is in Woolen Boon DK in the purple drink color. So far, this is really nice. I mean, I've only just started it, but the twisted stitches on the rib and the textured cable in here, I'm really enjoying it. Hi, Megan from the future here. I realized there was a couple things that I forgot to share with you, so I'm going to re-record it a little bit. One of my works in progress is my Cozy Memories blanket, and I show it like 4 times a year or something. Just because of it's a slow project, but it being started new year, I should show you. So I have my progress keeper here from the last time I showed it to you. So let's see if I can get this all in there. Yeah, there and up. I was able to finally put in all of my minis from the Series of Unfortunate Events Club that Once Upon a Corgi held. And then I got an extra one in here. Ended with, sorry, should show you in logical order. So it starts from The Bad Beginning, The Reptile Room, The Wide Window, The Miserable Mill, The Austere Academy, The Ersatz Elevator, The Vile Village, The Hostile Hospital, The Carnivorous Carnival, The Slippery Slope, The Grim Grotto, The Penultimate Peril, and The End. And then I put in Lemony Snicket. So that's the one I'm most proud of right now, is just finally being able to get all of those in there. So that's my Cozy Memories blanket. Sorry, I had a skein unwinding incident here. And that goes into acquisitions, which is going to be a little bit longer today just for mainly one specific reason. And I mentioned a little while ago, might have been last episode, of trying to cut down on my acquisition segment because, one, it looks really bad if your acquisition segment is longer than everything else, 2, I can stop anytime that I want to. And 3, it just helps keep things easier and smoother, I guess. But there is a special purchase that I made that I want to talk to you about later. So that's the reason it's going to be a little bit longer today. Therefore, of course, I have to talk about the Who's Your Doctor Club from Nerd Girl Yarns. I get the Bounce and Stomp base in the club, if you don't remember. And last month's base color was Girl in the Fireplace. And it's just, I had such feels after this one for, of course, Girl in the Fireplace, which is another Stephen Moffat one. Moffat! Or he broke our hearts and stomped on them. But it's so beautiful. So, try to show you the tag there, which I should do more often, I guess. And I have the Oh Captain Club also by Nerd Girl Yarns. I get the binary base for this one. This one is Captain Crunch, which is not what you think it is. It's a Psych reference, not a cereal reference. It's Captain Crunch. So pretty. Right. This is a yarn I actually got a little while ago, but I decided to show it on here. This is my first skein of Biscot yarn in the by Bis-Sock base, the self-striping. This one is called Titanic. And I couldn't figure out why I liked it so much and why I felt like I had to get it. And then I realized it makes me think of the 10th Doctor and his TARDIS. Where the blue's in there and then brown, which also matches the TARDIS interior, but then his suits. So, well, and then he also encountered the Titanic at one point. Not the real Titanic, the future Titanic that didn't actually crash into Buckingham Palace. Important to remember. So, trying to find... I'll just show you this one. So, in French and English, I hit up the Ravelry D stash again, and was able to find some very lovely colors in some Canon hand dyes in the William Merino sock, the self-striping version, which is a 75-25 4-ply merino nylon blend. They were both Sherlock Holmes inspired. This is the first one. I'm trying to get it to not blow out. So you get your self-striping main skein and then the mini. I thought they were the same initially, the two that I got, but they are actually different. So this one, you probably can't tell, is a white with a navy stripe, and then the blue mini. And this is for Sherlock, the BBC Benedict Cumberbatch version. And she doesn't specify which version this one is, but this is Irene Adler. With a red mini, of course. And this one is a black stripe with it's like a barely there pink peach in the stripes. Oops. So maybe if you contrast them together, maybe it'll show up on camera. Yeah, you can kind of see how they're different there. But Sherlock and Irene together, of course I had to get them. They're not quite an OTP, but they're awfully close. Then I have the latest edition, this was what was unraveling or unscanning itself earlier, of the Kindred Spirits Sock Club by Little Skein and the Big Wool. This was for December, so it's getting it every other month. It comes in the house sock base. You have the option now of either getting coordinating half skeins to go with it, or you can get matching ones depending on what your preference is. I want all the colors, so I keep getting the coordinating version. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the Anne and Matthew set, which just Matthew Cuthbert. I can't even talk about him right now. But so this is the house sock base, the Targi base, and you get set here of 3 colors, and comes with a Snowflake Progress Keeper this month. So, and I think I've gotten the colors straight here. This is White Frosted Morning, Fairy Arch, And then the mini is Silent Night. This is supposed to be after she has saved Minnie May from the croup and will start to rebuild her relationship with the berries. And Matthew goes to the house and gets her and brings her back after she's spent, hours and hours, and she's just exhausted, but she still manages to wax poetic about the ride on the way home. So, all those together. I think I finally know what I want to make with these, so that'll be interesting. Stay tuned. So, on to my special purchase treat to myself. Destination Yarn, which I am a fan of, just released a new collection. And her collection was based on Paris. And I went to Paris. It was coming up on almost 12 years ago now, when I turned 16 while I was over there. And so it has a special place in my memories. But she put up the pre-orders for this collection at the beginning of November. And the beginning of November is a difficult time for me because it's the anniversary of, a capital B, capital T bad thing that happened. And I always, on some level or another, become more depressed than usual around that time. So it's just a difficult anniversary for me. And she released the pre-orders of this collection on the exact same day, on the exact anniversary. So I decided to get myself a nice present as a consolation thing for myself. So she set up the pre-orders for these colors, but you could also get a pre-order for the entire collection, that's what I did. And I treated myself a little extra and got her MCN, one of the MCN bases. This one is First Class, so it's a merino cashmere nylon on a 2-ply, and I would like to show them to you. So the first color I have is Montmartre. Beautiful gray and beige there. Montmartre. This one is Twilight. Beautiful purple leaning blue. Noir, which you just have to have for a great black. Gilded. It's a lovely golden yellow. And Parisian Fog. It's also great. I love the purple tones in here, which is also great because when I was in Paris, it rained the entire time. We took the Eurostar from London, where it was bright and sunny. It's the middle of summer. And then we arrive in Paris, and it is cloudy and rainy, which actually added to the whole experience. Like, we went to the Palace of Versailles while it was just continually misting, so every time you looked out into the gardens it looked like a watercolor painting. It was beautiful. So, Parisian Fog. A lovely purple Bordeaux, because, of course, why not? This is a nice variegated, it's called City of Lights. Perfect for the Paris night sky. And this was the color that made me decide, actually, that I absolutely had to own this collection. Gosh, I'm getting emotional. This is, I'm just going to try to show you the tag first. This is the Palais Garnier. Oh my gosh. So the Palais Garnier is the Paris Opera House. And this is also the opera house where the Phantom of the Opera is supposed to have taken place. So, on so many levels, it's all the feels. And the Palais Garnier was where I spent the most time in Paris. We actually got a hotel just down the street from it. I spent a whole day in there. We walked past it every day. You know, a life highlight, really. My dad let me spend the whole day there. He just said, you know, we're going to actually not have a schedule today. You take as long as you want. And so we took the tour, and it's thundering and raining outside and just, making me feel all gothy and just adding to the whole experience. And being able to go inside the auditorium, seeing the chandelier, and trying not to, laugh maniacally as you see it. And so it reflects the outside architecture and as well as the inside. So the seats, and it's just red and gold all inside, and the grand foyer with the marble, and it glows on its own, and it's such a beautiful, I don't want to quite say magical place, but for me, for what it means to me, it was absolutely incredible. So to have a yarn finally named after my favorite place on earth, I just had to have it. And it soothed my feelings that I was having at the beginning of November, and to finally receive it in my hands. And I will have to make something so special with this. This is going to be a continuing collection, so I can keep ordering more when I need it, but it was just something so special to me that I really wanted to share it with you guys. Speaking of the Phantom of the Opera, I wanted to bring back a segment that has been languishing for several months, which is dedicated to my other passion, the Phantom of the Opera, and share with you my collection of Phantom books. And I think I've gathered them all together. I think it's everything. I'm going to try to go in somewhat chronological order here of when I acquired them. So the first one is an abridged version. I got this when I was approximately 10 years old. And I remember going to get this. So this is the first time I actually read the book. And this is, not sure if I know which translation it is. Oh yeah, Lowell Blair. So Lowell Blair translation, abridged. So this is the first time I actually read the book, like I said. And I'm not sure if it really spoiled me, but I would find that I had a lot of trouble with finding a good translation of the novel, because I'm sure I've heard that it makes a lot of sense, well, obviously, in the French, that there's a lot of actual humor in it, there's a lot of puns in it, but it doesn't translate well into English most of the time. And it's really confusing. This version, I don't have the dust cover for it anymore because I'm an idiot. And this is, as far as I can tell, the most common English translation that you can find. And I always find myself very frustrated with it. It goes all over the place. It doesn't always make a lot of sense. I've wanted to just throw it across the room. And then I found out a lot of people feel that way about this particular translation. So I kind of gave up on it. I thought, I can't understand it. It's trying to be too many things at once. It's trying to be comedy. It's trying to be mystery. It's trying to be a love story. It's trying to be a horror novel. And I just couldn't get past it. And let's see. Probably this book. This is The Complete Phantom of the Opera by George Perry. This was published, let me check. It's either right after or right before the stage play. Yes, this came out the year after Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical came out in London. So this provides a lot of history for the backstory for the novel and production for the play. There's a lot of great quality photographs in here, some of which I had never seen before up to this point, like detailed photographs for Masquerade. It contains the complete libretto, which I did have because I'm a nerd. So a lot of great production history and behind the scenes photographs. Then I came across, or was introduced to, the novel by Susan Kay, Phantom, which at this point I would have been 10, 11. It had been out of print for several years, and my mom found a copy on eBay And she had read it after she saw the play in the 80s when it first came over to this side of the US. And this is actually one of the only fiction books that my dad has willingly read and enjoyed. Very controversial book, as a matter of fact. Some people view this book as canon as the Leroux novel. Some people view this as the only source for anything Phantom. Very controversial in its ending. I kind of agree that, because Susan K. starts at Eric the Phantom's birth and goes even past his death. And so that means that it covers the time that the Leroux novel covers and changes a few things. And I agree that I think she should have stopped like right when Eric and Christine meet and then let it go over into the Leroux novel. Some people will really disagree with me on that. However, it's a very insightful book, very well written, and answers a lot of questions. And like I said, some people think that this is the answer to all the questions, but it is essentially fan fiction. It's incredibly good fan fiction, but it's still fan fiction. So this is not the end all to everything that the Leroux novel doesn't answer. I still love it. And then when it did come out and when it was printed again, Luminous Press, Luminous Stars reprinted it, and then I was finally able to get a hardcover version. This illustration was done by I hope I pronounce it right, Ramil Lagan, also known as Phantoons of the Opera. He is, I would consider him a pillar of the fandom, and this is in more of his classical style, obviously, but I'm very glad to have this and to have something, tangible to support him. So, yeah, here's his name. Check him out. This isn't technically a Phantom book, but it is the architecture for the Opera Garnier. My mom got this for me. So it offers more of the history of the actual the building itself, and blueprints, and the secrets therein. I'll never understand some of this, but I love it anyway. And there's actually a funny story. I got this. We were on our way to an orthodontist appointment, and this arrived in the mail. And so I'm poring over this in the waiting room, and the nurses come up, and the assistants come up and say, "Oh, are you getting that for schoolwork? Is this a homework assignment?" I said, "No, it's for fun." They're like, "Okay, kid, hey, whatever floats your boat." So that's that one. This was released in tandem with the 2004 film adaptation of the Andrew Lloyd Webber play. This is the Phantom of the Opera Companion, which I was kind of disappointed in this one, because aside from some behind-the-scenes photographs for the film, practically all of this you can find in this book. There's not much difference in there, besides, includes the original screenplay, which is basically the libretto of this one. There's only a couple minor changes that I can see from this one to the screenplay to the film, so I don't feel like I really got anything out of this one, except some high-resolution photos of a man that I thought I was completely in love with at the time. And I like to say that my true love is the original Andrew Lloyd Webber play, but I did have a brief affair with the 2004 movie. I came to my senses later, and then reunited with my true love. I still keep evidence around, evidently, but there it is. When the news came around that Andrew Lloyd Webber would be writing a sequel to his stage play, there was a lot of controversy. There still is. And when it was revealed that he would in fact be using the Frederick Forsyth novel The Phantom of Manhattan as his source material, which at the time it was published was called a sanctioned sequel to the play. I already heard some interesting things about it, decided I wanted to read it for myself. This is 3 hours of my life that I wish I had back. Now, look at it. It looks like a fairly substantial book. Look at the size of the print in it, though. Seriously. It took me 3 hours to read this. I didn't get anything from it, except some anger and confusion. I don't like it. I don't like Love Never Dies. I like some of the music, but I don't like it. And I almost even considered getting rid of it, but then I realized you need to know your enemy. Whenever I question myself on writing style, I look at this book again. Sorry, Mr. Forsyth, I know you've written other good books. I don't like this book. During its run, I followed a podcast called All Things Phantom, which was run and hosted by Vicky and Teresa. Vicky published a book called Lessons from Phantom of the Opera, which are copied from her blog, most of them. It's a series of essays based on the different characters and some cases, objects, and themes within primarily the movie, I would say. She does touch on the Leroux novel a bit, but it would mainly be a companion to the film, I would consider it. But I'm glad that I got that one to support her. And behold, the first version of the Leroux novel that I was actually able to understand. This is translated and edited by Leonard Woolf. Like I said, that was the first time I was able to read through it. It's also annotated, which is really cool. And like I said, I was able to understand it finally. So it has footnotes and annotations to give more context to the story. Like, what war are they referencing? What factual events are they referring to that kind of back up the story or the idea of someone secretly living in and underneath the opera house? And even things for especially the last chapter, or the almost last chapter, of when Eric and the Persian are speaking to each other, and it tells you, like, when they switch from formal French to intimate French for the pronouns that you would use when you're talking to a friend as opposed to an acquaintance. And that adds so much more to the conversation that they're having when you know when they switch back and forth on that. Things like that. And you have some interesting illustrations there. I can't remember who did them. I should know this. Yes. There you go. So this one to me is invaluable. After reading different versions and different translations, this is the one that I like the best. Another work of fan fiction, technically, this is The Canary Trainer, which was written by Nicholas Meyer, who also wrote another Sherlock Holmes novel called 7% Solution. That's very interesting. Also did a great deal of film screenwriting as well. Check him out. He's very prolific. So this is a Sherlock Holmes meets Phantom of the Opera novel, obviously. And it's supposed to have been taken place during what's known in the Sherlock Holmes community as the missing years, when he, spoiler alert, was faking his death. And it's like 3 years that he spent missing, and his adventures there. So according to this one, he goes to the Paris Opera House and takes up a position in the orchestra where, he can play to his heart's content, keep an eye on Irene Adler since she's an opera singer, and solve mysteries in the meantime. It's interesting, the conclusion that he comes to about who the Phantom is and, revelations thereof. Still worth a read. Still worth, go ahead and check that one out too. Canary Trainer. The last book is the most recent one that I have. It's the most fluffy version that I can think of. I don't even know how to preface this. I'm just going to show it to you. The Muppet version of the Phantom of the Opera. And, well, for one thing, I knew this was coming out, and two, it's Uncle Deadly who's being the Phantom. That's deep into, the Muppet-verse as well. I'm really glad that Uncle Deadly has been becoming more popular recently. But I wasn't sure what it would be when I first heard about this. I thought it might be just, some really generic, just swapping out characters' names, or I thought even at first it would be a comic book version. But no, it's written by Gaston Leroux and Eric Forrest Jackson. And oh gosh, I mean, look. Beaker on the chandelier. I haven't read it yet because it's embarrassing. I've had it for almost a year, but I can't decide whether I want to read this through straight because it's following the Leroux novel. So I'm trying to decide if I want to just read that all the way through or if I want to read it in tandem with the Leroux novel so I get all of the jokes that have been made. This is really cleverly done from the little that I have read. So I feel weird even talking about it, but there you go. There it is. Also, Megan from the future, again, I realized I completely forgot to go into my current obsession, which is the Netflix series of Unfortunate Events. The final season premiered on January 1st, and so we're all done. And different things prevented me from seeing it all on the 1st, and I finally finished, and wow, guys, it's so good. I cried. Yeah, good, just gonna admit it right then. I didn't realize how invested I was in it, these are books that I grew up with, and I've read the supplemental books, the unauthorized autobiography, the Beatrice letters, and the All the Wrong Questions series, that it's kind of a prequel, and, I saw the Easter egg in the end for, the bombinating beast, and I was like, ah. And just being able to finally get answers to a lot of questions and knowing that they're real, since Daniel Handler, or Lemony Snicket, is a part of the project. So I don't know, he can lie. He can really mess with us. So anyway, but being able to get answers finally, and backstory and flashbacks on different characters and situations, and finally knowing what's in the sugar bowl, guys. I mean, come on. So, and then I have to watch the whole series over again, and I think I want to read the books over again to, just because there's still different mediums, and being able to experience all of that again. So, that is my current obsession. That's finally it that I think I have for you today. Thank you for sticking with me in all of my phantom-y nerdiness. I'll have to think of what to do next time I have that segment on. I'm kind of running out of things in my collection to show you. So, yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna stop there. Happy knitting, everybody. Happy nerding. Be good to yourselves. I'll see you later. Bye.